How did you like that dramatic intro? Are you sick of taking bad Lego photos at home?
Well, today that's gonna change.
Because today we're going over the top 5 Lego photography tips to make you a bigger. Because today we're gonna be going... The bloody memory card was full. Anyway. Because today we're going to be going over the top 5 Lego photography tips you can do at home. A lot of my Lego photography revolves around me going outside, driving to these epic locations to take my Lego photos. But I realized that a lot of people might not have a driver's license. They might be living somewhere where it takes hours to get to an epic location. But essentially today we're going to be looking at what you can do at home with your Lego photography. So first, before we even take the photo, we gotta choose the right characters. I tend to stick with quite iconic characters like Star Wars figures, Lord of the Rings figures, because they're very recognizable characters, just like Gandalf, Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker. People can immediately look at that and understand what the story is right off the bat, which can really help engage audiences in your Lego photography. But this isn't always the case. You can also resort to figures that are quite iconic, like knights, detectives, or even a skeleton. Now, once you've got the characters, you want to try your best to match those characters with the environments that you have. Now, you might have a backyard. If you're lucky, you might have beaches nearby, mountains. Now, when you're matching your Lego figure to your environment, it's cool to use colors that match your Lego figure. For example, the green ninja, I took him to my backyard, and on this tree trunk there was a bunch of green moss. And I thought, perfect. These two colors correlate together really well. I put them in the environment, and look, it kind of speaks for itself. But if I was to talk about it as if I was doing it at home inside, even something as simple as this photo here, just using a breadboard and knives and a corn figure running away from the knives. Tip number 2 is going to be based on composition. So composition is how you frame your photo. Now, before we even take the photo, it is so important to get eye level with the figures. You want these figures to look like they're lifelike. If you have your camera angled at a top angled position, then it creates an unnatural and makes you look like a giant looking down at these Lego figures. You want to get eye level with the figures to make them look like they're actual people. Because that's how you would photograph people. You wouldn't get on a ladder and photograph them from up here. You would want to photograph them at the height that you're at. Although there are some times where I will resort to doing high angle photos because it can sometimes help with just either showing a landscape or a specific Lego set that I've got that just makes sense at a higher angle, but still thrive to make it look as natural as possible. Like I've also done with the green ninja here in my backyard. Angled it in a way that it still looks natural. See, this part of the tree log looked like a nature terrain and there's like a massive cliff. I photographed from a high angle to show that depth of the cliff and the space around the green ninja, and it still looks quite natural and quite effective. Now with Frodo and Sam here, I actually found that because I have a black fence, it was quite distracting and kind of ruined the image because you have all this natural green grass and dirt and then you just have a black background, which never makes sense. So I actually got a log from my front yard and just put it right behind it, and you can just see the difference it can make to an image. Adding natural things to your image makes the Lego figure so much better. People would never know that this is in your backyard. Now, when you're framing your shot, don't be afraid to use the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds is a composition guideline that basically divides your image into 9 points. As I was beginning Lego photography, I was so used to photographing my Lego figures in the same centered spot every single time. It actually took me so long until I started experimenting with putting my Lego figures to the left or the right. These sort of compositions generally lead to more compelling images, which I've learned very quickly. I actually started experimenting with these sort of compositions after watching anime, where they heavily rely on these composition techniques. It is so important that you experiment with compositions, and you can actually set up your camera to have these grid lines very easily. And I definitely recommend putting that into your camera so that you can get more compelling shots. Otherwise, you're just going to be taking the same shot every single time. Now we're going to be using some household items. So for this shot, you're going to need a few figures that I think deserve to get wet. That sounds wrong. So I've chosen the shower guy, some diver tank guy, and Darth Vader, because I don't know, maybe it'll look cool. Then you're going to grab a cheese grater. You're going to place it outside and put your desired Lego figure inside of the cheese grater. Set your camera up on a tripod so that it makes it easier to take the photo. Set your camera to continuous shooting with a high shutter speed, maybe over something like 800. Then grab a cup of water and you're gonna start pouring the water over the cheese grater while snapping as many photos as you possibly can. And you may get a result like this. It's a simple yet really cool way of creating some unique images because the cheese grater just lets the water fall in these really unique ways. And because it's like a cool square and it's like really reflective. It just looks like a cool image. Now if you don't have the space to be spraying water everywhere, you can also resort to taking photos inside as well. Now the main thing I think of is just how can I implement my Lego figures into the things I already have. For example, I have Lego Spider-Man and his web, and I essentially wrapped him around the sink and had him with a cup of water with water falling down. Now, it's just simple things like that. Think of a scenario that you do every day, turning a sink on or having coffee, and just think of different ways you can implement Lego figures into those everyday mundane tasks. Because it's something also people can immediately relate to. Oh, I put the sink on every day. I use coffee. One of my most favorite photos is this coffee figure here. Like just using coffee grains and have him drowning in coffee. It's one of my favorite photos still to this day. Tip number 4 is going to show you how to make Lego float. The first step will require a bit of Photoshop, but then I'll show you how to do it without Photoshop. So the easiest way to do this is to set your camera up on a tripod, take a photo of your Lego set floating, then remove the Lego set and then take a photo of a clean frame. So that clean frame you can then implement into Photoshop, easily brush over the stand that's holding the Lego set. Or if you can't do that, you take a photo of your Lego set or your Lego figure on a stand, import it into Photoshop through Lightroom, and then you're going to press P on Windows to implement the pen tool and draw around the stand. Then once you've done that, you're going to make a selection, press OK, and then you're going to use Generative Fill to remove the rod. Now, because I've been using Photoshop for almost 6.5 years, I got pretty good at removing these sorts of things from images, just collecting different parts of the image and placing it into the shot to remove the stand. But with Generative Fill, it just saves me so much time. Now, I don't see this talked about enough, but when you apply a Generative Fill, it doesn't create the same amount of noise as you do in your actual image. Now, what I mean by that is if you zoom up, you can actually see where I've put the Generative Fill, there's no noise. But in my image, there is. So what you want to do is we want to go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and then you're going to add some noise to the Generative Fill layer so that it merges with the image perfectly. And then you zoom out and you've got a pretty convincing photo. Now, if you don't have Photoshop, you can easily do this by using fishing line and a blown out sky. So what I've done here is I've grabbed the green ninja and I've placed a little bit of fishing wire onto his back, hanging it off this thorn bush, and essentially photographed him against a white background, making sure to keep the leaves and also the tree in the background so that it's not just a blown out sky and he's floating there. It actually provides some context to why he's flying. People can assume that he's jumped off the branch. Actually super effective as well. Like you would never be able to see that he was being attached by a fishing line. So there are ways to make Lego float without Photoshop, just requires a little bit of creativity, I guess. Now the last tip is don't be afraid to post your Lego photography. I was always afraid of posting my Lego photography out of the fear that people might think I'm childish for doing it. But I feel like Lego photography is quite rare in the world of art, I guess. It's something unique that not a lot of people have seen before. And if you have an idea for a Lego shot, go and do it. Like if you have a specific figure that you love, find a way to creatively shoot them. My first few Lego shots were awful, but I posted them here and there, and the feedback that I got from it, although it was a few comments, it was still really cool to see what people thought. If you start doing Lego photography, don't be afraid to send it my way because I would love to see what kind of stuff you guys create. I guess that was my own top 5 Lego photography tips you can do at home. If you want a part 2 to this, might drop one very, very soon. And yes, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.